You will only ever make enough money to fulfill your dream. So how big is your dream? Belief systems around money, around business, around teams. Veteran business coach Steve Wanmer, who coached former competitive swimmer, Australian swimmer, an Olympic champion and former world record holder Duncan Armstrong, explains why practice does not make perfect. Steve, why business coaching for you?
Why business coaching, especially when I'd never heard of business coaching, and I was looking at what the next chapter of my business life was going to be like, and I was thinking that since I'd had a lot of success with marketing, that I would start a marketing consultancy. And in the course of looking around in that direction, I stumbled across an advertisement for the ideal white-collar franchise. And I thought, that's really very intriguing. So I read a bit further, and that was the first time that I saw the two words business and coach together, and it was Action International, explaining that they had begun franchising their business coaching offering. And so I inquired and did due diligence and suddenly realised that whilst I was thinking that the major problem with small and medium businesses is usually marketing, that that's not the main cause of the problem. So this would be a more holistic way of helping small and medium businesses. So I took the plunge.
And working with thousands of businesses over let's not count how many years.
Yeah.
What do you find is the number one thing that most business owners find challenging in their business?
I'd put it this way. The number one challenge they have is being a business owner.
Oh, okay. Number one challenge they have is being a business owner. Okay. Explain that to me.
Okay. Well, most of us start a business because we've had an entrepreneurial seizure, as Michael Gerber explains it in the E-Myth, and we think that we're working for an idiot and we can do a lot better, and we want to have more time and we want to have more money, and the boss is ripping the clients off, and so we're going to start up in opposition. And we usually pick them up for coaching anything from 2 to 5 years after that, at which stage they realise that they're not working for an idiot, they're working for a lunatic. And that's because they have not made the transition from being an employee and having the mindset of an employee to having the mindset of a business owner. Business owners, successful business owners, think totally differently to what employees think. And so that's the number one area that I work with my clients in, helping them to make that transition, let go of a lot of baggage that is holding them back, and be able to take on board the identity of a business owner.
So what would be some of that baggage you find business owners have?
Okay, the number one baggage, I guess, is that nobody can do it as well as I can, and that I have to work my butt off. Success comes from working hard. I remember a printing business that I had meetings with some years ago, two brothers that were managing the business between them. They'd just taken the business over from Dad, and the older brother was the printer, the younger brother was the admin sort of guy. And the older brother, he got to the point where he's so frustrated with me trying to educate them that they could actually grow the business without having to work as hard. And he literally screamed at me, "Steve, what don't you understand about business? The only way to succeed is to work harder." I said to him, "How many hours a week are you working at the moment?" He said, "Well, about 80. Well, you haven't got much room to work harder at that rate. So, yes, the other brother was very keen to take on the coaching, but because of the attitude and the entrenched belief of his older brother, it never happened.
So are you saying business owners don't have to work harder?
You have to work on the right things as a business owner, and you do have to work hard at particular times. And that usually involves at the beginning of your business journey, because most of the people that I've coached, very few of them actually bought a business from somebody else. They started their own business, and they get to where they got to by working hard. And there's really no shortcut around that, although if you understand that you have to grow at the same time as your business is growing, then it does make it easier.
So what's some of the ways that you personally as a business owner should grow?
Well, I think it involves looking at and being honest with ourselves about what our beliefs are about money, for a start, and about staff. It really annoys me the negative ways that a lot of business owners talk about their staff. And of course, one of the first learnings that you need to have when you become a business owner is that you get the staff you deserve. So if you want better staff, you have to become a better business owner. So you have to change your beliefs about money. You have to change your beliefs about staff. You have to change your beliefs about customers, because after you've been in business for a little while, you start to have negative beliefs around your customers. They're uneducated. They're all price focused. That's probably the major limiting belief. All my customers are price focused. You don't understand, Steve. It's all about price. And it very rarely is all about price. But the thing the belief we need to take on there is that people will make it about price because they understand dollars and cents. Everybody understands that $100 is more than $80. But they don't understand how your product or service can be 20% or more, 25% better for them than your competitor who's charging less than you. So changing your beliefs enables you to then look at how can we educate our customers so that it doesn't become about price.
So I want to unpack that a little bit more. Beliefs around team. So I know I've been caught myself before having a belief that no one can do it better. Do I have to do everything? Why do we have that belief?
That's a really great question. And I'm not sure that it's one single thing. I think it's a combination of things. I think that it affronts us. We're affronted. We're very challenged by somebody else being better than us. That's one part of it. I've proven that none of them can do it as well as I can do it. And of course, the other part about it is that we're living out our beliefs all the time, subconsciously. So if I have a belief that nobody else can do it as well as I can, then I'm not likely to hire someone who can do it better than me. And if perchance I do, then they will pick up that belief that I have, and they won't stay long. Excuse my throat. They will leave. So yeah, I think it's more to do about our opinion of ourselves, what we say
what's a
to
good way to
ourselves
change
about ourselves.
How can we change that?
There's all sorts of examples around that, I suppose. But what it comes down to is identifying what negative belief you have. And that's where, as a coach, I seem to have an ability to help people to get present to that. I think all of our action coaches are pretty good at that. And I became famous in the sense of one of my clients in the early years of coaching gave me a testimonial where he called me the silent assassin. And I thought, as I read it, the silent assassin, what is he talking about? But he explained, as he went on in that testimonial, and said, Steve has eliminated all of my negative beliefs that were holding me back with a simple, isn't that interesting?
Isn't that
And
interesting?
so, isn't that interesting? Who sold you that belief? We've got to examine where we got our beliefs from, because the beliefs that seem to stick with us are the ones that are negative beliefs. I don't know whether we just cherish those sort of beliefs a bit more somehow, or because it's we've been humiliated, perhaps because somebody criticised us, and so that creates a negative belief for us.
So explain the thought process behind "isn't that interesting," rather than "I know."
Yeah, that's right. The thought process, it's a journey for most people. And when I've been able to help a client to have a realization themselves, have their own realization about the negativity of a particular belief, then they seem to find it quite easy to change that belief. And I simply coach them in, okay, well, what would be a better belief you could have about that? One of the classics, of course, changing the topic a bit from staff and whatever, is a belief about money, that money is evil, or there's dirty money. I mean, that starts when we're quite young. We don't have a lot of handling of actual currency in our world today, but typically in previous generations, little kids, they've got to taste everything. They've even got to have the taste test. So, they find a coin on the floor or something and pick it up, and it goes straight in their mouth. And Mum says, take that out. That's dirty. Get that out of your mouth. And so
that's so true.
Money equals dirty.
Yeah. Well, it's not true money's dirty, but that's true. That's my mum's used to say that. I'm sure I said that to my kids too.
That's right. Yeah, get that out of your mouth. That's dirty. You don't know how many people have handled that.
Wash
all the
your
germs
hands.
that are on that. Yes, that's right. Yes, and so that imprints a belief in our mind that we have to be able to replace with something else. I was given a very interesting definition of money by one of the people that I worked with. I guess he was he was the chairman of my marketing committee in a previous marketing role that I had. And he discovered this saying, money is only energy. We must use it to power the things we believe in. And so if you can change your belief about money, that it's not dirty and it's not evil and it's not to be avoided, or that you only need a certain amount and beyond that you'll be greedy. If you understand that money is actually energy and that we use it for positive and altruistic purposes, then that's how miracles can be brought about.
Wow. Money is only energy.
Yes, I think it was a poet, fairly little known poet, I think, Robert Ingpen, that coined that little phrase, but it's stuck with me.
So what are some of the ways that we can change that belief then that we have about money?
Well, I think that is another really great question. The second part of that, what do we believe in? We have to have a belief in something bigger than ourselves. Actually, I was listening to a gentleman sharing his wisdom a couple of weeks ago online, Peter J. Daniels. He's an Australian man. Not a lot of people have heard of him, but very successful, be one of the wealthiest men in Australia, although he's in his 90s now. And he decided to he wanted to find out how much money one person can give away in their lifetime. And of course, he had some causes that were very dear to him. One of them was encouraging young people. He donated huge amounts of money as well as a lot of his time in causes that helped young people to aspire to greatness. Basically, that was his whole thing. You've got greatness in you, and this is how you go after it. And his own life was a really great example of that, because he was never diagnosed as dyslexic, but he probably was, and so he failed school and was an illiterate bricklayer when he decided that he really wanted to make something of his life and that he needed to educate himself since the education system had failed. And it's quite a fascinating story, because one of the main things he did was that he went to a bookshop and bought himself a dictionary. And he, after he'd had a hard day's work, at night he would sit and read the dictionary. And he developed a vocabulary that anybody who's ever heard him speak — he did a lot of public speaking in his life around the world, actually, but his vocabulary was absolutely amazing. Very impressive speaker. Delivered his message with great passion and clarity because of his vocabulary. And that's an interesting thing too. But a lot of business owners, they don't even have a vocabulary for business. I was astounded in my early years of coaching that many of my clients, when I asked to see their profit and loss for their business, they'd say, "Profit and loss, what's that?" Well, it's one of the main accounting documents that tells you how your business is performing. And that's just the beginning. There's the more that we can increase our vocabulary, and this applies in any area, it doesn't matter whether you're a brain surgeon or a plumber, the better your vocabulary is, the easier it is for you to succeed and achieve a life purpose that will be greater than you thought was possible.
Okay, so to change your belief system around money, it's understanding money is only energy, increase your vocabulary.
Yes.
So in terms of know and understand what a profit and loss statement is, and it's an example, so understanding, learning. What's another way you can change your belief system around money?
Well, coming back to, I think the main way is, you're only going to actually make as much money as you need to fulfill your dream. So if you haven't got a big enough dream, then you won't make much money. So it's a dream coupled with confidence. You need to have a bigger dream and you need to grow your confidence.
How do you grow your confidence around money?
Yeah, there'd be multiple factors there as well. But the story that just flashed into my mind a moment ago was of a builder that I coached. Well, I only coached him for a very short period of time because he actually had to go bankrupt. But I remember the goal-setting exercise that I did with he and his wife. And this is an interesting reflection on couples in business as well. I've coached a lot of couples in business, and invariably the wife will have a list of goals that she can articulate off the cuff. What would you like to achieve in 5 years' time? And this Peter, his name was, and his wife, he couldn't think of anything, so I asked his wife what her goals were. And she just rattled them off, one after the other. She had about half a dozen goals, and they were great goals. it was about family predominantly, but then it got to the point and then when the kids have left home, I'm going back to university to finish my degree, and I'm going to learn the piano, and I'm going to this and whatever. And Peter's sitting there kind of a bit mesmerised by this going on. And I said to him, okay, what about you now, Peter? And he said, I don't really know. I said, okay, imagine that you're the wealthiest person in the world and you're never going to have to work another day in your life. What would you do? What would you use your life for? And he didn't have to think more than a split second. And he said, in a very soft voice, he said, I'd charter jet aircraft and fly doctors and medical supplies into third world countries to help the people. And at that moment, his wife spun around and looked him in the eye and said, Peter, you've never talked about that. So that he has had that fellow would have had that idea, that vision, if you like, that dream for many, many years. But it was so outlandish that he couldn't ever conceive of it being possible. Mm. And because he didn't value himself highly enough either, like I only remember doing about 2 coaching sessions with him, and in that time I had managed to help him rustle up enough confidence to increase his margin on his quotes. He was about to quote, when I started with him, he was about to quote on a rather large mansion of a place, somewhere down east of Beenleigh, I think it was, but it was quite an impressive a set of plans that he briefly showed me. And I said, look, instead of a 10% margin on that, put a 15% margin on it. And he actually did that. And between that coaching session and the next one, he'd been to see them. So in the next session, I said, how did you get on when you presented your quote? He said, they signed up. And he was quite amazed. He said, they signed up. They didn't even ask about the price. They had no questions about the price. But the tragedy of that is, and look, this is just so, it's such a distressing thing for me to share, but before the morning of the next coaching session after that, he rang me and said, Steve, we're going to have to stop the coaching. And I said, oh, what's the matter? Can't you see me today? Do we need to reschedule? And he said, no, we won't be able to see you anymore. I said, why is that? He said, because we've just had a meeting with our accountant and we're going to have to go bankrupt. And I just, my jaw just dropped. And I said to him, oh, that's such a tragedy, Peter. He said, yeah, Steve, if only we'd have found you 6 months earlier, everything would have been so different.
Mm. Yeah, very sad.
Yeah. But see, what gets in people's way to prevent them from asking for help when they really need help instead of letting it go too long like that? That's the $64 question. I haven't got an answer for that.
Well, that's what you mean by the belief system is what holds business owners back, the biggest challenges that prevents them from getting help.
Yeah, exactly, Michelle. And look, it really, this was another blinding flash of the obvious that I had years ago, because I've met plenty of people who should have had coaching but couldn't bring themselves to sign up for coaching. And what I realised was that they don't value themselves enough. If you don't value yourself, then why on earth would you be willing to pay $2,000 or $3,000 a month to be coached? Now, they never verbalise it to me. They never say to me, well, I don't really think I'm worth that. But I believe that is the actual root of the resistance that prevents people from getting help.
So in their mind, they might be delaying that because they just want to wait. They're thinking, I want to wait until I reach a certain level, or I want to, get more sales or save some
Yeah,
money somewhere else.
yeah. Oh, that's right. And because by the stage that they're making that decision, we've spoken to them several times, and then it's usually a face-to-face or a Zoom meeting with them when we're asking them to make that decision. And so a typical response at that point is, look, I really appreciate, all the ideas that you've shared with me. I need to get these in place first, and then I'll be ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready.
Mm-hmm.
The reality for business owners is you are never, ever going to be ready for coaching. Don't think that you can get yourself ready for coaching. It's like an Olympic swimmer. And I say Olympic swim because I coached a gold medal winning Olympic swimmer a few years ago, and that was an interesting. I learned a lot from him.
Who? You need to tell us who now.
Oh, I've got to remember his name. Duncan Armstrong. Duncan
What?
Armstrong. Yes.
You just dropped that one in there, Steve. Wow.
I wasn't going to say, but look, he explained a lot of the philosophy behind coaching at an Olympic level to me that was really very, very interesting. It's ambition, not just ability, that qualifies you to be coached to become an Olympian. It's ambition and commitment. Oh, look, I forget the numbers now, but he quoted me numbers of young fellas, young people of his era that dropped out of the coaching program. They wouldn't turn up for the 5 o'clock in the morning at the pool to do their training. It was too much for them. It's you a lot of people disqualify themselves for coaching because of belief. Well, it comes back to because of beliefs about themselves.
And it's probably not just disqualifying them from coaching, it's disqualifying them from achieving their full potential.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter whether we're talking business or whatever else we're talking. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so let's talk strategies on how we can change that.
Mm. Okay. Well, a lot of business owners, when they start with me, some of them are making a reasonable profit, but one case that I can recall from many years ago, this was two men in partnership together, and they had a $6 million business. They were turning over $6 million a year, and they were making less than $100,000 profit. And it was a very brave decision. In fact, the younger of the two partners, he actually had another business that was quite profitable. And so when his older business partner was he wasn't full out anti-coaching, but he just didn't want it. Well, you get it if you want it, but I don't want it. And the younger guy, he said to me when he signed up, he said, and the two of them were there when they signed up for coaching. So the older guy actually, he decided he was going to cooperate, which was great. But they paid for it from the profitable business that the younger partner had. And so I started coaching them, and very quickly realised that they were competing on price. Comes back to what I shared earlier. We have to compete on price because they were selling a product that was fed to horses, and they were selling it through produce stores, and they had signed contracts to take this product, which is a byproduct of another process. They'd signed contracts to take all of this product, and so They were importing massive quantities of this. They had it stored on the wharves at Brisbane, and they had to get rid of it. So, like, if we put our price up, it blocks the sales will drop, and we're going to have to pay storage fees on huge quantities of this stuff, and then we're going to have to sell it at cheap price to get rid of it. So it was a major challenge to help them to go through the process of increasing their margin and therefore their price. And without going into all the details, well, I said to them, when we get to that challenge, we'll come up with a solution. So there'll be a solution if that should happen. Put that out of your minds at the moment. And they had, by that stage, I knew enough about their product to know that it was superior product compared to all their opposition, all their competitors. And they had the scientific information and everything to establish that as well. And they were already printing a little booklet that described their product and all the benefits of it and that sort of thing. And I said to them, look, imagine that I'm a potential client of yours to buy your product, and I'm in the produce store and I see all the other offerings there at, say, $10 a bag, and yours is $8 a bag, and you're trying to tell me it's better. That doesn't gel. That's not logical. If your price is better, if your product is better, then instead of yours being cheaper than the opposition, it should be dearer. So that enabled them to reprice their product so that they were, I think from memory, something like 15%, might have been more, above their main competition. And they were absolutely petrified of the effect of this. At the same time, we changed the bag that their product was presented in so that it looked quite different. It stood out, was radically different to the others. And we reduced the size of the amount of product in the bag from 40 kilograms to 30 kilograms. And they were so nervous, but they did it. They did all of that. And about a month into that, at the new price, I said to them, so what sort of complaints are you having? They said, well, the produce store people were pretty upset about it and pretty nervous about it. I said, but okay, so have you had any actual users complain about it? No, we haven't. Nobody's complained about it. So the end result of that was that we get to about May, I suppose, in the financial year, another month to go, and they have a meeting with their accountant and they discover that they've made at least $1 million profit and maybe more. And their existing accountant, and this is an interesting point for business owners, their existing accountant couldn't come up with any strategies beyond, well, you better buy yourselves new cars. Oh, we've already done that. You better put as much as you can in super. We've already put as much as we can in super. And he just sat there, basically looking at the financials and with in a mix of expletives about them and the tax office. He just kept saying, you guys are going to have to pay a hell of a lot of tax. I hope you've got
time
the
to
cash.
find a new accountant.
That's right. And I've had to do this so many times. And I said, you've outgrown your accountant. Now, fortunately, the younger of the two partners had actually signed up and gone and done Brad Sugar's 5-day business boot camp on the Gold Coast. He was doing them in those days, a couple of weeks before this. And when I said they've outgrown their accountant, he suddenly said, I said, do you know any other accountants? And he said, oh, on the last day of that boot camp, Brad Sugar's had his accountant there and he did a session. That was amazing, the session he did with us. You know, he's really full bottle and he gave us lots of examples and everything. I said, have you got his business card? He said, yes, he handed out his card at the end and said if we want to have half an hour of his time to give him a ring. I said, go and get that card. So we booked an appointment for the next week and I went along to the meeting, and that was John Illingworth, International Professional Services, who'd been Brad's accountant right from when Brad first started the business right through to this stage and for many years afterwards. And I was literally blown away to see a really good accountant in operation. He sat there with his young offsider who was taking notes, and the questions that he asked, I thought, wow, that's a good question. And then he'd ask the next question, wow, that's an even better question. And
What were some of the questions? I'm dying to know now.
Well, tell me about your self-managed super fund. Well, we don't have one. What? You don't have super? Well, yeah, we've each got our own super fund, but we don't have a self-managed super fund. Oh, no. He said, and then he started asking him, so how many staff have you got? Is it just you two? Are there any other family members work in the business? At which stage the younger partner says, oh, yeah, that's right, Dad works in the business. Well, what does he do? Well, he's the gopher. Why have you got your dad working in the business as your gopher? And he said, well, because his business, he went bankrupt some years ago, and so you know, it's my way of supporting my dad and mum, is that I've got him on the payroll and he goes to the bank and he goes to the post office and whatever. And so John says, okay, he's your dad. How old is he? Oh, wait a minute. He's 69. Oh, so his next birthday is his 70th birthday. Yeah. When's his birthday? Oh, and it was only about 3 months away. And John says, you know, the best way you can support him is if you set up a self-managed super fund and get him in the super fund as a beneficiary, and we can shift a whole lot of money in there for him.
Okay, I feel like we need to just add a disclaimer right here that we're not giving any tax advice on this episode.
Not at all. The advice is simply this. If a business, it comes back, I suddenly start thinking about vocabulary again. If you don't know the questions to ask your accountant and you're just relying on your accountant to think of things that they should be telling you about or questions that they should be asking you, then I'm sorry, that's a dangerous position to be in, particularly as your business grows. You would get away with it until your business is, you know, probably $500,000 or even $1 million, but revenue. But you've really got to seek out an accountant who has got a track record of giving above average advice to business owners.
Great advice. Love that lesson. Thank you.
Those guys, not surprisingly, those two partners, I coached them for over 10 years, in which time their business grew from year to year dramatically, and the older partner wanted to retire, and at that stage they got an offer from a larger business to buy them out, and they ended up very wealthy. Let's put it that way.
That's a great story, great success story. I want to come back to ambition, not just ability. Ambition, you know, you mentioned one of the ways to change your belief system is to dream bigger. And you mentioned ambition when it comes to, you know, elite sports people as well. What, you know, ambition, what creates ambition? Like do some people have an ambition or drive more so than others?
Well, I think we observe that all the time. Look, I think it goes right back to our childhood, our early childhood. I think, but that's not the only factor, because some people have had a very less than helpful early childhood, and they go on to achieve amazing things. The human spirit is really fascinating, and obviously there's been a lot of study on how we behave and what drives our behaviours. But it's interesting. Just look at it this way: when I was about 5 or 6, I had no doubt about what I wanted to be. Now, but as I got older, I sort of reached a conclusion, I suppose, by things that happened to me and what different people said to me, and I let go of those original dreams that I had. And it took me a long time to really get present to the fact that I needed to replace those childhood dreams with my adult version of that. And and so realistically, it wasn't until probably about my mid-20s that I actually then I began to aspire to achieve something that might be a bit memorable, I guess, yeah. And I mean, a lot of kids start up with something like, I want to be a fireman, and I think I went through that stage. And but interestingly enough, my son, when he was about 5 or 6, started to tell us he wanted to be an airline pilot. I'm going to be an airline pilot. I'm going to fly airplanes. I'm going to be an airline pilot. Well, why are you going to be an airline pilot? Well, they get paid a lot of money. It was about that stage that Joe and I got very friendly with a couple who, the husband was a pilot, and they had the ski boat and the posh house and the rest of it. And he was kids are very observant, way more observant than we are as adults. And we let the things that we observe impact us positively. And so Scott, when he was quite young, I want to be an airline pilot. He never became an airline pilot, but it's another story. God's been very good to him. He's made a lot of money.
Not being a pilot, though.
He made it in business, interestingly enough. He's made a lot of money in business, my son. I'm very proud of him.
You've been a great example for him, no doubt.
Well, I hope so, yeah.
So ways that we can change our belief system and have more ambition, dream bigger. You talked about increasing your vocabulary, getting a better understanding, learning.
Reading books.
Yeah,
listening
great.
to books these days, audio, yeah.
Get a coach.
Yes. Yeah, it's not just a coach. Coaches don't have magic wands. I wish I did lots of times. I've wished that I had a magic solution, a silver bullet, but it doesn't work that way. When it was Laurie Lawrence, I think, that coached my Olympic swimmer, Duncan, and it wasn't just the coach that got him the gold medal. And nowadays, one of the things I learnt from Duncan is he only had one coach to get his gold medal, but nowadays they have multiple coaches, really. And one of the things I learnt too is about, we've heard the old adage, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. Practice doesn't make perfect at all. If you are a golfer or an aspiring golfer and you don't have the correct swing and you keep practicing it, you're not going to get better. You need a golf coach who watches you, corrects you on a continuing basis to progressively improve your golf swings in different circumstances and with different clubs and whatever. And you practice improving your technique. And the same thing's true in business. You have to not just practice harder, you have to be practicing better.
Great advice. I love that. Yes. Practice does not make perfect.
No.
Amazing. Thank you, Steve. So many BFOs today.
That's good.
So to wrap up, tell me, what's your favourite business book?
Well, I've got a whole library full of favourite business books. The one that I keep coming back to is Good to Great. Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, because I see the principles, I think there's 12 of them, in that book. Well, first of all, they came out of university research of successful businesses they disproved at the time most of the theories that were taught, business principles that were taught in universities, which is an astonishing thing when you think about it. And they're timeless. They're principles, and with principles you apply them to the particular business. They do not apply in the same way necessarily to every business. But good to great would be the top of my list. And in terms of Brad Sugar's books and business books for smaller business owners, the Billionaire in Training book of Brad's is I think it's Brad's best book, really, because it's the one that I use with all of my clients to help them go through that transition from employee mindset to self-employed, and then from self-employed to business owner to owner leader when you put a manager in your business, and then to investor and ultimately entrepreneur. That book basically is the guidebook for going on that journey. So if I can have a second one, that's it.
Love it. And best mentor or coach for you throughout your career?
Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure, because I was born such a long time ago and started work such a long time ago. I've had lots of mentors. I was sharing with someone the other day, I only realise in hindsight how well I was mentored by one of my managers. I think he's probably passed on by now, but Les Bryant was a manager of a claims department in the insurance company where I had my first real job. And I look back now and think, man, I learnt so much from that guy. But other than that, I've had a lot of other great managers. I learned a lot from one of the coaches that for many years worked in my firm, Leon Bingham. He's the coach that used to remind us all the time, remember, guys, it's 80% the business owner, 20% the business. 80% the business owner, 20% the business. So as a coach, we're working on the business owner. Now, 80% of our coaching is the business owner. 20% of our coaching is the business, because business is simple. We have to understand that simple doesn't mean easy, but let's not complicate it. So,
Great
yeah,
advice.
and of course my dad, when I was growing up, Dad was an incredible mentor to me as well.
And the best piece of advice that you ever received?
Well, the best piece of business advice I've ever received is, and I'd attribute this to Leon Bingham as well, the coach that worked in my firm, as goes the owner, so goes the business. I only have to look at a business to be able to tell you about the owner.
Amazing insights in our time together. Thank you, Steve.
I've had fun. Michelle, this has been great.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.